Wagner got ambushed in Bakhmut, and just overall the pace of their advancement and offensive has significantly slowed down, which almost looks like that it's near its culmination. At the same time, they are sabotaging and targeting their own commanders, and all this in the meantime while Ukrainians are making their final preparations for the ultimate counter-offensive. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude, and let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And today we begin with the most recent statement of Putin, who said that Europe, because of their sanctions against Russia, they are the ones struggling the most, and as a result, the regular people of the Western countries, they have to get rid of tomatoes. His almost exact quote is that whenever Europeans are preparing salads, they have to replace costly tomatoes with some turnips. And to prove him otherwise, let me show you what I have in my fridge. Alright, apparently Putin was right, I do not have tomatoes, but neither I do have turnips. But it does not mean that I will not be able to survive without my tomato salad. But okay. And now back to some serious news, and as you can see from this video, a KGB, which is a modern FSB building in Rostov-on-Don, has been caught on severe fire. According to the Russian propaganda, the ammunition in the basement spontaneously detonated, which caused this incident. Believe it or not. And so yes, if you just once again do not believe Russian propaganda, and if you do have tomatoes unlike me in your house, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel to see how many tomato owners are in the chat. You can also follow my second channel, The Russian Dude Clips, where I post under 1-minute summaries every single day. The link will be down below. Alright, next we go to Kursk, where there was another episode of Russian propaganda, which basically claimed there was a special operation of interception of Ukrainian diversion group, which was supposed to be do some activity later in Belgorod. And I mean, just think about it. Ukrainian diversion group driving their pickup truck with the Ukrainian license plates in Kursk. Totally not suspicious at all, and they're planning to do some activity in Belgorod, which is right next to the Ukrainian border. Yeah, all of this totally does make sense. And speaking about the diversion groups, recently the Supreme Court of Russia has acknowledged the Freedom of Russia Legion to be a terroristic organization. Right. Next we go to the region of Yaroslavl, located in Russia, where the local men also started receiving their military summons to just check their biographical data. And then, talking about another city in Russia, Penza, the graduates from the Penza University, along with their diplomas, will be also receiving military summons. And I mean, one of the main reasons why men in Russia go to study in the university is to avoid the mobilization. And now it does not look like attractive anymore. And just overall, a total of 35 regions in Russia, which is almost half of Russia, they've been reporting that their local men also been receiving these military summons documents. Which just once again, if you remember my previous video, confirms the fact that Russia is looking to do another round of mobilization, starting most likely April 1st. Alright, and before we talk about update from the south and the east and the ambush against Wagner soldiers in Bakhmut, let's briefly talk about the Western support to Ukraine. And first of all, as you can see from this video, Sweden is planning to send 8 self-propelled artillery systems called Archer to Ukraine. It is considered to be one of the best systems because it can arrive to the place, perform 3 shots, and all this in under 1 minute before even the first shot lands. Then we have a picture of a French AMX-10 RC combat fighting vehicle which recently already arrived to Ukraine, and if you remember, Ukrainian soldiers only recently finished training how to use it. And then finally, according to the president of Poland, Andrzej Duda, the country will send 4 of its MiG fighter jets to Ukraine, which are supposed to arrive in the near future. And speaking about the planes, right here we have a video which has been earlier released by Pentagon, which shows how the Russian Su-27 fighter jet is attacking and dumping fuel on the American drone MQ-9. And well, according to the Russian ambassador to the US, Anatoly Antonov, pretty Russian name, okay? So he said that this incident is pretty normal, Russia was just defending itself. But if America intercepts any aerial vehicle of Russia, even on top of neutral waters, this will be considered as America declaring a war on Russia. And I mean, yes, if America is going to team up with Ukraine against Russia, I don't think this will end well for Russia, right? But anyways, probably also being tired of ridiculous Russian propaganda, reportedly the best fighter jet pilot of America, Dan Gempton, he volunteered to serve in Ukraine. And in addition to that, he also mentioned that a lot of his colleagues, they also show pretty much the same initiative. Alright, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the south and the east of Ukraine, and also ambush of Wagners in Bakhmut. And first of all, right here we have a mini documentary presented to us by the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, which shows us previously unseen footage of the liberation of Snake Island and the destruction of Moskva flagship. The full version has 2 parts and it is almost 6 minutes long. That is why I uploaded it on my Patreon, where there is still 1 week of free access, and the link is down below. Next we have the statement by the Russian infiltrator in Kherson region, Vladimir Salda, who says that Russians are perfectly in control of this front line along Dnipro river. And as a general rule, whenever they say we are in absolute control, it means completely otherwise. Next we have a report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Ukrainians were able to do a relatively successful assault against Kakhovka reservoir. And then just literally, believe it or not, but we have this article from the Russian propaganda, which claims that the forces of Russian, they try to intimidate Ukrainians by playing extremely loud sounds of women moaning. And I kid you not, here's this article right in front of your eyes. Okay, I guess. Now let's go all the way across the country to Belgorod, where Russians reportedly intercepted couple missiles. And then, going back to Ukraine, according to their sources, they were able to destroy an advancing assault group of Russians, along with their armored personnel carriers in Dvorichne. Going a little bit to the east, Ukrainians reportedly were able to destroy a Russian command post, as long as several multiple launch rocket systems located in Pokrovsk. Next we have the same report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Russians did not do any offensive next to Svatove, but they tried to do some assaults close to Kreminna. And at the same time, a Russian K-52 helicopter has been intercepted. And speaking about the surrounding areas, according to the Ukrainian intelligence, Russians looks like intensified their offensive along Liman front line. It looks like that this is where they want to advance. Obviously they won't be able to do it, but this is what they want, and most likely this is their attempt to maybe capture and surround Seversk, because ultimately, apparently, what they think, this will somehow help them to capture Bakhmut. And I mean, just think about it, if they cannot capture Bakhmut, being right next to it, how advancing from another location will help them either. But okay, next we go closer to Bakhmut itself, where reportedly Ukrainians were able to do their own small counteroffensive next to Khromove. And then, according to the Russian infiltrator in Donetsk region, Denis Pushilin, he claims that Ukrainians, it does not look like that they are planning to abandon Bakhmut. And according to him, the situation inside the city is extremely complicated, but this time for Russians. And in support of this, right here we have the statement by the State Border Services of Ukraine, which claims that Ukrainian forces were able to perform a small, localized counteroffensive along Wagner soldiers in Bakhmut. But this was not the end, because whenever Wagner soldiers retreated and entrenched themselves, Ukrainians prepared for an ambush, and whenever the night started and Wagners tried to advance to counter-attack Ukrainians, this is when Ukrainians did their another ambush counter-offensive and destroyed the remaining of this Wagner unit. We then even have the statement by the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Alexei Danilov, who is saying that there are just so many bodies of Russian soldiers on the outskirts of Bakhmut, and there's no one to take them, because either no one cares or they simply cannot do it, because there's constant artillery fire by Ukrainians. And then he even added that according to his own intelligence, those Russian collaborators who are in close proximity to Bakhmut, they are no longer seen on their positions, which basically means that they are retreating, leaving just their regular soldiers behind them. And I don't want to make any bold predictions here, but to be honest, this is something similar we've seen in Kherson city just like a couple of weeks before its liberation. And just in general, according to already Western intelligence, the pace of the Russian advancements in the east significantly slowed down in comparison to the previous week. And they conclude their statements by making the proposal that maybe the offensive of Wagner in Bakhmut is very close to its culmination. And what do you think usually happens after one side is able to successfully withstand the assaults of the second one? Pretty much that's right, this is when the first side starts counterattacking. And in several seconds we'll talk about the final preparations of Ukrainians' counteroffensive, but first just literally a couple more words from the east. And first of all, according to the Ukrainian sources, they were able to destroy an advancing assault group of Russians in Marinka along with their tank. And then, speaking about Wagner once again, right here we have the intercepted phone call allegedly happening in Vuhledar proximity, where two Wagner soldiers are talking about sabotaging and eliminating their own commander. The entire conversation is 1.5 minutes, it does have English subtitles, and you can just literally hear the desperation in their voices, and as always, I uploaded the full version on my Patreon, the link is down below. But wait, there is more. Besides successfully repelling the majority of Russian attacks, Ukrainians already started showing the very first early signs of their upcoming counter-offensive. Such as, for example, this most recent claim by the Russian side that Ukrainians did a reconnaissance in force against Polohi. They brought several of their military vehicles, engaged in the combat activity and collected the intelligence data. And this is in addition to this ambush against Wagner in Bakhmut and this small localized counteroffensive that we talked about previously. At the same time, Ukrainian soldiers are finalizing their training on NATO military equipment, and slowly but surely these combat machines already started arriving into the country. And as you can see, the timings of these counteroffensive assumptions, which was supposedly begin somewhere in the middle of this spring, are pretty accurate. We then even have this map, which shows us the fortifications that Russians have been building previously, and as you can see, the majority of this concentration is located in the south, close to Melitopol. Because pretty much yes, as I was already making these guesses in my previous videos, my biggest assumption is that the counteroffensive of Ukraine will be against the Zaporozhye region, because they would like to separate Crimea from the rest of occupied Ukraine, and this will be a significant pressure against Putin. And according to the Western sources, they see two scenarios of Ukraine's counterattack. The first one, as they think, will be in the south from Kherson region all the way to Crimea. I think it is way too ambitious, and they also do not believe that this is going to happen, at least now. But the second scenario that they see is that Ukrainians from the north will come to the assistance to Ukrainians in the east, and after liberating this area, this is when they will start going to Crimean Peninsula through Zaporozhye and through Kherson regions, and this scenario is more probable. And just in general, there are still some non-believers in the West who do not think that this counterattack of Ukraine will be at least partially successful. And in reply to them, Alexei Danilov said, "Don't worry, it might be complicated, but we got it." Because, Ukraine already proved the world that Russia is not that scary. They were already able to resist the initial invasion by Russia. They were also able to retake big chunks of their territories. And now there are still Western skeptics who think that this offensive will not be successful. You can even see it in willingness of other countries to support Ukraine, because at first they were pretty hesitant to send their tanks or fighter jets, but as soon as they saw that Ukraine is pretty confident in winning of this war, more and more countries started actually showing this military support. And eventually, as Russia gets weaker and weaker by day, Ukraine is only getting stronger. And there is only one logical outcome of this situation, which is the victory of Ukraine. And if you don't want to miss it, please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use the PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where there's still 1 week of free access. All these links will be found on the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.